Okay, that operation is done. We are starting our final lecture of a series of 5 lectures on the Provence calling trip that's going to happen. Actually, I'm leaving on Saturday. In just a few days, we'll finally come together and experience this. And then I'm really happy to share some parts of it through this lecture virtually. And thanks again for joining me. This is about Van Gogh, about his life, and especially focusing on of his time in Provence. Uh, Van Gogh painted something like 850, 860 paintings in 10 years. And that's such a huge number that is like one painting in average, like every 4 or 5 days. Can you imagine one painting every 4 or 5 days? So he has several periods. And at the end of this lecture, we're going to do a little game and try to figure out what period each painting that I'm going to show without the label information belongs to. And again, you will be asked to please unmute yourself and then shout one of those 6 periods that's listed there. But anyway, some of the most important periods are the Paris period. He painted some like 220 or so paintings. So that's about one painting every 3 or 4 days. Then after that, he goes to Arles, and that's about one painting every 2 or 3 days. He goes to Saint-Rémy. That's also painting 2 or 3 days. And then his final period is Auvers, Auvers-sur-Oise. And that's during those 2 months he paints something like 70 or so paintings. So it's almost like one painting a day. Incredibly prolific man. But I want to start by a little prologue. I like to pay tribute to this lady. So who is she? Her name is Jo Bonker. Bonker. So she is actually the widow of Theo Van Gogh, and that's Vincent's brother. Vincent's brother is going to die, unfortunately, just months after Vincent. So unbelievable. And all of this painting that Theo had inherited are going to be, of course, passed along to Joanna Bonker, and she was not trained in art at all. She's actually a literary person, and all her friends are going to say these paintings mean nothing. They are really horrible, and they ask her to dispose of them, believe it or not. But there were a few artists who were in touch with her who told her that it would be foolish to just get rid of Vincent's works, like some of her friends had recommended. So she decided to keep them and try to make the best of it by preserving his memory. She organized a few exhibits. And then one thing that she did was incredibly influential is that she she edited and then published the correspondence between the two brothers. We're talking something like 600 or so letters that she will publish. And of course, this is going to, comment dire, how to say, she's going to develop the story of this solitary painter who was so misunderstood by everyone and who suffered for his art before dying so young. So it certainly built the mystic about Vincent and his story. So if it weren't for her, I am convinced that we wouldn't be here today to talk about this painter. So here is my little tribute to her. In some ways, she changed our lives. So Vincent was born in Zundert in the Netherlands, not too far from the border with Belgium in 1853. His parents, uh, Theodorus Doris van Gogh, so he's a minister in the Dutch Reformed Church. His mom is a very devout homemaker. And Vincent is actually the oldest of 6 children. Oldest of 6 children. He certainly shows quite early talent for painting, but the parents are not too much into it, and they put him in school. He's a good student, but doesn't get along well with his peers. He's already showing some kind of idiosyncratic character. Um, He's definitely doesn't seem to be this destined for academic life, but they tried hard and they sent him to a boarding school, which was definitely a bad idea because he didn't get along with his friends there. So they took him out eventually, and at the age of 16, he started to work. Where did he go to work? Well, it happens that an uncle in their family had founded an art gallery. And he had some high stakes in this art gallery, which has grown and was very successful. It's called Goupil and Co. And this art gallery had many showrooms all over Europe, Paris, The Hague, London. And so he starts to work in one of those showrooms at The Hague. And then I think he also goes to Paris, but he eventually is sent to London at the London showroom of Goupil & Co., an art gallery. Okay. And well, he's going to spend 2 years there. And those 2 years perhaps are the happiest of his life. Things are going to go south after he will fall in love with the daughter of his landlady. I have to say, Vincent is always in search of love. He certainly believes in it, very much so, but he is always rejected. And this first rejection is going to send him into a depression. He's already prone for this kind of disposition, and he will just quit his job, perhaps even get fired. I'm not quite sure, but he's definitely not staying with Goupil & Co. at the gallery. He will start wandering around. He will go back to Belgium, to the Netherlands, and he will join a miners community in an area in Belgium called the Borinage, the coal mining community, and he will act as a missionary there. He will dispose of all of his belongings. He will basically live as in poverty, just so that he can feel the pain and the condition of these people. Is a and actually he's going to be in such a dire situation that as he is kind of sketching, he's a great draftsman. He sketches all the time, but he will start burning his sketches in order to create some fire and get some warmth because it's a very cold and damp weather over there in the winter especially. Anyway, so he's certainly looking for a purpose in his life, which he's really not seem to be finding because even as a missionary, the priest in his surrounding find this man a little bit overly zealous, almost counterproductive. So they fire him and they ask him to just leave the community. So that didn't work either. So he goes back home and he's acting in such an erratic way that his father threatens him to send him to a mental institution, like an asylum. It's the first time that this is really already almost predicting what's going to happen later. And his brother Theo is going to intervene and will say, listen, you have this skill as a draftsman, as an artist, but there is so much of it that you don't know. Why don't you consider a career in art? And I will help you. So he pledges to help him financially, which he begins to do that. So Vincent is going to start taking private lessons with a member of his distant family who's an established artist, and he will learn how to paint with color. But as you can see, there is not much color that he's using in the beginning, and this is his early period. So look carefully to this painting, earth tones, okay? No color really, and this is really what characterizes this early period. So later on, when we play the game, you're going to have to recognize this period, the early period. So all these earthly hues and muted colors and nothing vibrant, nothing that you will make you say, "Oh my God, this is a Vincent van Gogh." But he's learning how to paint with color, how to use paint, and also the rules of the perspective and all that. So all this depth that you see with the trees going into distance and as it's kind of receding, this is a very characteristic of Vincent's compositions. So it's definitely not his colors, but the composition is almost becoming consistent with what we're going to see in the future. And so some of his idols, his gods in art, are Gustave Courbet, Jean-François Millet. These artists are known to be realist. This is the realist movement, where they are basically taking subjects that are never been considered by other artists. These are very common people, but then they give them dignity by bringing them up and not making them overly sentimental or anything like that. So these artists, Jean-François Millet, Gustave Courbet, those are the realists that he's going to kind of follow in their footsteps in some ways. And then, as you can see all the way on the right side, where you see the famous Gleaners, which is Jean-François Millet's perhaps masterpiece at the Musée d'Orsay. The Gleaners are those peasants at the very, very bottom of the chain. And those are the ones who basically pick up all the leftovers after a harvest that happens. And the harvest, as you can see, are just have finished it in the background. That's what you see over there. Those are the people who just finished harvesting. So they come and pick up the little remains of the grains and whatnot. So Vincent is going to do many portraits, many studies of peasants. It's interesting that many times we're going to see portraits or studies of peasants seen from behind, almost as if he's too shy. Sometimes you have a camera, you want to take a picture, but you don't want to be seen, so you take it from behind. And so it's a little bit what he's doing often. So here is a great study. And then all these studies of peasants is going to culminate with a masterpiece called The Potato Eaters. And it's at the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. And here, again, very much dark colors. There is no color practically, it's just earth tones and browns and kind of greenish things. Very much chiaroscuro. You can see sharp contrast happening here, and also certain deformation, liberties taken with the limbs and parts of it. So it becomes, like we call it in art, expressive. Kind of makes it his own, almost like a cartoonish or caricatural a little bit. You can see that. And I mean, just imagine if you have this taken in a photograph and try to imagine, it will look very, very different. But the whole idea here is that they are basically digging in with their forks and their hands into the potatoes that they just harvested and cultivated. And then these are the hands that just made that possible, those hands, those strong hands. So this is what's happening. And they're all together kind of very in an intimate way in a small little cabin. So you can see this little nucleus of a family in some way. So lots of dignity given to these characters. So this is his masterpiece that will come from the Potato Eaters. Like I said earlier, he will search for love. He will be always there to find love. He will fall in love very easily. So the lady to the left, Margot Begerman, I mean, she had many, I think, kind of mental health issues, so much that she will actually commit suicide in his arms. I mean, she's in love with him, but somehow, for some amazing reason, she's very depressed, and she will try to kill herself. And out of all people, Vincent is going to be the one saving her. I mean, it's incredible. The one at the center, it's completely random portrait of a peasant. I'm just showing that because on one instance he was in a peasant's home and he was doing the portrait of a woman, and then that woman somehow rushed out from the house, screaming, bloody, whatever you say, it was the expression, and claiming that Vincent had tried to ravish her. well, there is no proof of that, but anyway, the whole village came together and kicked him out of the village and asked him to never come back again. So he had a big incident like that. And the female figure on the right side, her nickname is Sienne. This is actually a prostitute that he took home when he was in at The Hague, when he was taking lessons from that distant cousin. And well, she had a child. She was pregnant, and she had venereal diseases, and she was alcoholic. And I don't even know if I'm missing out on other problems that she had. But this is the kind of person that he basically took home. Remember that he was a missionary, or he tried to be. So he's really trying to help people in great need. He has a tremendous sense of compassion. And that's actually a relationship is going to last 2 years. But then when Theo is going to find out that he's harboring or hosting a person like this. He's going to say, "Listen, I cannot help you. You have to get rid of her, or I cut off the money that I sent to you, with which you are paying the rent and then housing this woman. So there's no way it's going to happen." So he's forced to split from her under the pressure of the family, etc., etc. But anyway, so Vincent is gonna come to the end of his rope, just trying to do whatever he can left and right, and nothing's working. So he will come crashing at his brother's home in Montmartre, Paris, in 1886. And I don't know how much, you know, Theo was expecting him, but anyway, of course, he takes him in. And the two of them now will start living together for about 2 years. And this is an incredibly pivotal time in Vincent's career as an artist. And I don't think I told you guys this, but his career lasted 10 years. 10 short years. Amazing. So this is this pivotal time. Okay. So he goes to Paris, and the two of them, of course, they're gonna just go out, and they're gonna go to cafes, they're gonna go to galleries, they're gonna go to museums, they're gonna party, they're gonna drink too much, they're gonna get sick, they're gonna go to the hospital together, catching God knows what kind of diseases for partying too much, if you know what I mean. And so anyway, but by doing to all this is they're going to meet a lot of course, artists, and Paris is the capital of art at that time. And so people like Toulouse-Lautrec or Paul Gauguin or Maurice Denis or Émile Bernard, or Pizarro. So all of these people are going to be kind of friends with Vincent, and certainly acknowledge his talent and respect him. So he's doing really well. So at this point, Vincent, as he's being exposed to all of this art that's there, like firsthand, he's going to start to pick up some of those techniques, some of those ideas. He was going to be very stimulated by what he's seeing, and this is the period where his voice is going to start to emerge little by little. The voice, the artist's voice that all artists try to find, and when you have it, you just run with it as fast as you can because you are so excited, and you are so motivated, and everything comes flowing. So this is a period of experimentation that's happening for Vincent, this period of 2 years in Paris. So he's basically picking up some techniques left and right. He picks up some colors. All of a sudden, his palette is lighting up. He's becoming much brighter in his coloring. And then he's going to see, of course, the Monets, and he will try to pick up the same composition like you see here. He will introduce those dashes that's so characteristic of post-impressionist style, and etc. etc. So he's experimenting. Colors are now emerging and coming through very clearly. And yellow is one color that's definitely something that he will experiment a lot. So this is a very interesting picture, a painting that he painted in the suburbs of Paris called Asnières. When I was some like 6 or 7 years old, we are in Istanbul, and then we had just moved to a new apartment, and my parents received the box as a gift, as a housewarming gift, and we opened the box, and the painting emerged out of there. and it was this painting. Well, sorry, of course, you guessed the fact that it was a copy of this painting. But at this point, here we are in Istanbul. What do we know about Van Gogh? What do we know about any of this? So we put it up, of course, on the wall without really realizing what we were looking at for all of these years. My father kind of kept this painting as we moved from place to place, and until it was in Nice, I had the sad pleasure to throw it away because there was holes in it for having been transported left and right. It was in terrible shape. But anyway, so this is a painting that we lived with very intimately in our lives, and you can see again this plunging perspective and this kind of a vanishing point right here. That's very Vincent composition that you see right there. And all of these little dashes that you see here are starting to emerge because the Impressionists are, famous for putting those dashes just to pose them next to each other, sometimes putting complementary colors, etc., etc. So Toulouse-Lautrec even does a portrait of Vincent van Gogh as he's sketching something here. We don't know exactly what he's sketching, but this is at a very famous café called Le Tambourin. Okay, so Vincent, when he arrives to Paris, I think he will be doing his self-portrait this way, but then when he's ready to leave Paris, look at that. This is how he's portraying himself. So this is the same artist, and the contrast cannot be bigger. So you have practically a metamorphosis of an artist that's happening. He is really finding his voice. Okay, so Paris, it's nice and fun and dandy, but he's getting increasingly sick there because he's there partying too much, and he's really almost at the end of his rope again. So he decides to leave Paris, to leave his brother. By the way, this, during those 2 years, because the two brothers were living together, they didn't need to write to each other. So the documentation is sparse of the details as to what they did together. Whereas when they are separated, they keep writing to each other, so we can really know all the stuff that Vincent did. So Vincent is going to choose to move to Provence. So when we say Provence, it's basically a loose region. It's not really an official district or whatnot. So that's the southeast of France. And he decides to go to Arles. Okay. Alors, Arles, February 20th, 1888, he decides to go to Arles. So he takes the train and goes to Arles. So why Arles, out of all places? Why not Marseille? Why not Nice? Well, Arles had one reputation. Of course, the fact that he's going to the south, let's not forget he's looking for the sun. With all those colors that have entered his palette, it makes sense that he's going to look for light, all right? So that makes sense. But that aside, why Arles? Arles had the reputation of having the prettiest women in the whole of France. They are called Arlésiennes. There was even some famous play about this. The play was talking about an Arlésienne that never appeared in the whole play, but everybody talked about her. She was the most beautiful thing. Everybody was in love with her. The whole plot was going around her, but we never saw. So another kind of a mysterious character. So you had to go to Arles to find the Arlésienne and to see them. The other thing that's also particular with the Arlésienne, they have these local costumes or garments that are oddly reminiscent of Japanese geishas, kimonos, and other apparel. And they also sometimes appear with umbrellas. Of course, the ones are made out of paper, but these are more like lace. But nevertheless, and also you've got this triangular kind of veil or shawl that's just happens here, and then you've got similar triangular shapes happening here. Lots of parallel can be found between the Arlésienne and then the geishas that appear in Japanese prints. Why am I talking about Japanese prints? Because Vincent and Theo, they have been collecting Japanese prints. They are just passionate about them, and they are even making it kind of a side business by trading on Japanese print ukiyo-e. Okay, that's how it's called, ukiyo-e. So he goes to Arles. Here is Arles, and this our group will go to Arles. It's our last destination in terms of where we're going to be staying. In addition to Nice and Aix-en-Provence, we'll go to and stay in Arles. Today, there is basically the two top reasons to go to Arles will be to enjoy the arena, where you have some events happen throughout the year. Not throughout the year, not much during the winter, but kind of a bull fighting, friendly fighting. Bulls aren't really dying there anymore. But yeah, so you have games like that that happens. So yeah, that certainly brings people to Arles. But Vincent van Gogh is another attraction. So this poor guy that nobody knew, that died for his art and completely rejected during his lifetime, today is actually one of the attractions of Arles, and certainly our attraction. I don't think if the reason why we're going to Arles, it's because Vincent spent time there. So about 15 months he's going to spend time, and there is a little parcours, a little trail that we can take to find markers, markers that are made out of reproductions of Vincent work placed in particular places, that shows his painting, and also, and then we can see what he was looking at. Some of those things that we see today, of course, have changed, but they are close enough for us to compare his painting with what we see today. So we will do this walk in person, and we will hit some of these markers that you see right there. So today I'm going to share a few of these markers. I don't have time for all of them. So we can kind of start with the arène, the arena. It's actually an arena that was built in the first century by the Romans, and Vincent clearly went to see some games, at least one, because he's inside, according to this painting, and he's giving us the scene, what he's seeing. It's very interesting composition, because the reason why people go to this arena is to see the games that are happening basically right here. This is actually called the arena, is the floor of it. This whole building is called an amphitheater. So, but look at what Vincent's doing. He's giving us really very little of it. Just a corner of the painting is devoted to something, barely a sketch of the taureau, of the bull, and then you've got probably a toreador or a matador, perhaps, because he's got potentially a sword here. So he's about to finish this poor beast, and then you've got some of those other just torment this poor animal, and then all of these people have stood up, and they're all cheering because it's the moment when the matador is going to finish the bull up. But Vincent is not interested in this thing. I mean, this is like almost like an afterthought. So this is while all these things happening. Meanwhile, there are other things that Vincent is trying to bring our attention to. So you've got these geisha-like characters. I mean, he really turned this umbrella into a Japanese, umbrella. It doesn't look like that at all, but then he decided to make it look like this. So you see the parallels here. But those triangular just shawls and all that are certainly there. So you've got all of these ladies. You've got another Arlésienne here on the foreground with this green face. I mean, almost almost calling like really early what's going to happen in art movement many years later, almost 20 years later with the Fauvism movement, where you're going to have colors like this put instead of of the skin tones. You've got the green tones here. It's just such an arbitrary choice, right? So that's very Fauvist in some approach. And then maybe he also wants to say that he doesn't like these ladies because actually when he arrives to Arles, he's mistreated very much so by the ladies over there. Nobody really wants to pose for him. I mean, he came all the way there to meet ladies, maybe to meet the prettiest, maybe find love, and certainly try to portray them, but they totally look the other way. They ignore him and are rude to him. So he's probably giving this witch-like face to this lady, maybe signifying that. But then, what's going on here? You've got a meeting of a couple, and this fellow, I mean, it doesn't really look like a hat. There's no such thing as a hat. The hats look like that. So it could be maybe the hair, but there are no blonde-haired um, males in Al. They all have kind of that Italianate look to it. So they're going to have dark hair. So is that maybe Vincent projecting himself, meeting in a rendezvous, maybe a romantic rendezvous? She's smiling, and she doesn't look like them. She looks like almost like a school teacher of sorts, with maybe the face that almost has a kind of an Asian accent to it. Anyway, so I always thought that this is how Vincent is almost projecting himself and hoping that he's going to make this encounter. That's definitely not happening. Okay, so here is, for example, just to make my point, a picture of a female Japanese with an umbrella. So, like I was telling you, he's miserable over there. He's really not getting along with those Arlesians at all. And he has a room over a restaurant, and they are overcharging him and they are mistreating him, and he's really not happy there. So, but of course, he's seeing the postman a lot because he's sending constantly letters to his brother, and the brother is bringing letters to him. So he befriends the postman, Joseph Roulin. All right. So, whenever Vincent befriends someone and feels that emotional connection with people, he portrays them. He makes a nice portrait of them. And Joseph almost beats the record because he's done many portraits of this postman. And one thing is certainly interesting is that he looks very different with his beard like that. So Joseph Roulin is going to tip him and he's going to tell him that there is a house just a few blocks away from his inn where he's staying, that's going to be either available for rent or is already available for rent, and he should check it out. And that house is really not too far. So he's, inn is somewhere here, and then the yellow house that I'm going to show you in a minute is right there. So of course we're going to walk these things and we're going to see it. I just want to just warn you that these aren't the prettiest neighborhoods to walk. Not that it's unsafe or something. It's just it's a little bit away from the center of the town. But I want to take you all there because you want to see this. So we will see something like that. There is a marker right here that shows the painting that he executed looking from this angle like that. So the yellow house is here somewhere, but where is it? So this is how it looked in 1910, and this is the yellow house. And he moved to this section of the building. This was the common bathrooms that he shared with the landlady who occupied this side of the building. By the way, you ever don't want to share bathrooms with Vincent. He's really not a sanitary guy. He uses to just mix his paints and all that. It's gross, like you have no idea. So, of course, barely is going to start using this building that the landlady is going to regret having him sign the lease and start to bicker about all of these practical issues with Vincent. But anyway, so Vincent starts to occupy this side of the building, but he doesn't have any money to buy a bed or any furniture. So he's forced to stay in the inn um, while he's waiting to raise enough money to buy furniture, etc. By the way, this is picture dates from 1910, and I just showed you this. That's the big building in the background. So that's the big building here in the background. So where is this? What happened to the Yellow House? Well, this is what happens to the Yellow House. Well, the Allies, again, the Second World War, were chasing the Nazis, and the Nazis were retreating, as you know. And then all that bombing, and the train station is not too far, so the Allied were aiming the train station. So I guess one of the errant bombs missed the train station by big time and landed out of all places on the Yellow House, poor Yellow House. Ironically, the section that's got the most affected is the part of the landlady. Vincent's section seems to have been spared. But of course, it was in such bad shape that there was no way to restore this. And even though at that time, Vincent was already very famous posthumously, and they even considered to rebuild this following the same specification, but they dropped that project. So it's been razed. There's nothing there. So we have now photographs and the painting of the Yellow House. I'll get back to the painting in a minute. Another spot that's fun. It's in the Place du Forum, Forum Square. Now, last time I was there, the marker somehow had disappeared, and I don't know why they did that, because this is the marker that I'm talking about. This is the reproduction that we should see there. I don't know if they put it back, and it represents one of Vincent's most famous painting. Vincent decided that he's going to just stay up all night and paint whatever he's seeing, nocturnal scenes of Arles. And one of his best results is this. Of course, there were a lot of speculation as to where did he find the light in order to paint. Well, was that the oil lamps on the streets, or maybe he had some candles attached to his hat, and all kinds of thoughts circulated at some point. But it's probably oil lamps, street lamps that were giving him enough light to paint. So anyway, here is the facade of this cafe. You see very interesting treatment of these paving stones, those cobblestones. Look at all those little you know, curved dashes with different colors. The rendition of that is absolutely so vivid. You can almost feel it, amazing. And then it goes up again in the distance. So you always often have a sense of depth that he creates. But it's very interesting how he does that, the depth thing, because in painting, when you want to paint depth, you kind of lose the intensity of the colors in the background, because it gets increasingly hazy in the distance, right? Well, Vincent doesn't follow that. This is as intense as the foreground. So that's kind of flattens the painting in some ways, even though it suggests depth. Anyway, I'll get to it maybe with other composition, try to explain that concept. But anyway, it's very interesting that the light here, you really wonder what's illuminating all of this, because this seems to be a lantern, an oil lantern. If this is the source of light, this has to be the brightest spot in this whole picture, but it's not the brightest light. You can see clearly. I mean, just imagine if you have a camera, you take this picture, and if this thing is the one that just emitting the light that's going to illuminate all this, just imagine what's going to happen. You're going to have this like completely bright, and then everything start to kind of take shape. Well, Vincent doesn't care about any of this. He just gives us the lantern as he knows the way it looks, and then everything else. So today, this is how the cafe looks. Which I love about this is that I am sure that all of these green accents that you see here were not there. This is, I think, completely Vincent's own creation as this amazing colorist, right? But then the people who owns this cafe, they saw the painting. They said, "Oh, well, Vincent put green here. Why don't we also paint green here?" So basically, Vincent, in the beginning, he looked at the cafe to paint this, and then the cafe later on looked at Vincent painting to paint their facade. So it's kind of a circular thing going on. And then they named it as either Café Van Gogh or Café La Nuit, because it was at some point, open all night long. Okay, so let's come back to this to this house, the yellow house, the famous yellow house. So Vincent signs the lease, moves there, does this painting, super proud of it. But by the way, if you wonder what this is going on, it's like a little mound, like a tunnel or something. Well, they were digging at that time as they were laying natural gas pipes all along. So Vincent did this painting at that time, so he decided to basically keep that too. So that's kind of interesting that he decided to keep this little detail, and he calls it the Little Yellow House. All right, and he gets this idea that this was too big for him, that he should invite other artists to come and join him. And since he had met all of these artists in Paris, some of them had become his friends, so he sends a note to his brother to invite all of these artists to come to Arles and to create some sort of a community, maybe an art movement in the south of France of sorts. And he's thinking of what the Japanese had done. Japanese artists that he admires so much, they did also came together and worked in a communal way. So he's basically getting inspired by that as well. So he's sending all of these invitations to his artists. Of course, nobody nobody gets back to him or accepts his invitation except except Paul Gauguin. And the reason why Paul Gauguin accepts the invitation is because Theo bribed him to do so. Of course, Vincent doesn't know that. And it was also good timing for Paul Gauguin. He wasn't doing very well financially, and there was the promise of a free stay, room and board kind of thing. So he also took advantage of that. But anyway, Theo was going to pay for all of his expenses. So Vincent is just beyond himself that Paul Gauguin, somebody that he admires very much, accepted his invitation. This was such a big deal. So, like I said, he had no money to buy any furniture. So he raises money or he just saves money and then so he rents it in May. So he arrives in February, he rents it in May. And Paul Gauguin says that he's going to come in October. So he's got all of these months to kind of furnish the place, and which is what he will do gradually. And here is how the rooms are going to look. So the what you're seeing here is the same kind of a furnishing for Gauguin's room and for Vincent's room. There are two bedrooms in that upstairs floor. So the other thing that he's going to do, and by the way, he's so proud of what he accomplished. It almost brings tears to your eyes. I mean, it's so cute. The fact that he managed to put this together, which seems to be the normal thing for normal people to do, at some time in your life to just, rent a place and then you furnish it and then here you have a home. Well, as soon as he's able to do that, he delivers this painting and then is going to make several copies of it and send it to his family, almost like saying, guys, look what I did. I created this. And so this is again a very famous painting that's at the Van Gogh Museum in Amsterdam. So in preparation for Gauguin's arrival, and like I said, he's so excited about that, he's going to start decorating Gauguin's room with these paintings. Okay, so this is probably Vincent's most famous paintings, and they were painted to celebrate the arrival of Paul Gauguin. to in his visit in October. So he's painting this just during the summer, and then start decorating his room with these sunflower compositions. Well, he's going to be so pleased with them that he will make variants of them. So the four that you see on the very top are the first one that he paints in the summer of 1888. And then after that, he will make variants, not exactly copies, but inspired by his own compositions, three other versions in a few months later, January. By the way, the one that's in blue there was in Japan, and that was destroyed during an Allied bombing of Japan. So I don't know exactly if it was Tokyo or whatever, but anyway, it was destroyed during that point. So the Allies really, and they were not after just the Nazis and the Japanese, but they were also going after the Van Goghs, I guess. So October comes, and here the great Paul Gauguin shows up. And he's so charismatic. He's so full of himself, and he knows everything. And Vincent is like a little puppy dog, just going around him and doing everything that he says, and just eating up every single word that Gauguin is saying. And especially Gauguin is reprimanding practically Vincent for just painting too much things that he sees, not using enough his imagination. He keeps insisting on Vincent using his imagination and not being tied up to what's out there and just paint that. So, interestingly enough, again, almost like a shy person, Vincent is going to give us this kind of odd portrait of Gauguin seen from behind. I mean, nothing really too impressive. Whereas Gauguin is going to give us something completely fabricated from his imagination. And here he is painting the sunflower and is extremely grateful for that. Gauguin was really moved, really touched by Vincent's effort and tying their friendship to these sunflowers. And so obviously after October there are no sunflowers, so Gauguin is totally using his imagination, most likely looking at Vincent's composition on the walls, and then he gives us this odd background. Look at this, something blue. Is that like a river? Is this the banks of a river? It's so abstracted. It's a flat colors practically, and then you've got trees that are blue trees again, kind of almost like a Fauvist movement that's going to come in the future. So he also is certainly experimenting with color, and I can tell you that he's inspired by Gauguin because he admires Gauguin's play with colors. And then you've got like the roofs of some houses over there. Anyway, so totally made out of his imagination. He puts things together, and here is the easels, and Gauguin, I mean, Vincent is painting there. I'm not sure that he gave Vincent the best look. Looks almost like a little orangutan there. So not very flattering, if you ask me. But anyway, Vincent is going to oblige and follow the directives and the advice of Gauguin by using his imagination. Because Gauguin is saying, if you use your imagination, you can kind of insert meanings and messages by just associating things. Whereas if you just look at something out there, you may not have that possibility. So because Gauguin wants to insert messages and some symbols in his art. That's why he's actually categorized as a symbolist. There's a symbolist movement. So Vincent is going for it. So he's going to give us, this. He loves Jean-François Millet, as I mentioned earlier. So here's the sower. Look at that posture. Look at that movement with the arm just extended like that. So he gives us that. I mean, you can't go wrong. You recognize immediately Jean-François Millet's sower. That's right there. And then he has looked at Paul Gauguin composition with this tree dividing the canvas in a diagonal way into two. And you've got this diagonal tree as well, which is doing something very similar. So here it picks up that. And that's another quotation of sorts of Paul Gauguin. And then after that, look at his predilection for these compositions where you've got this plunging depth going in the distance and things receding, and that you have that too. But then he gives us this rising sun that happens to be right above the head of the sower, almost like a halo. So he's actually turning our little sower, this peasant, into a saint with a halo. So there you go. I mean, he's really following the words of Gauguin. Anyway, so that's just to tell you, and not to mention that there are some references to Japanese art right there as well. So he's really putting it together. And I have to say, Gauguin is right. He should have done more of this. I mean, it's already wonderful what Vincent has done, but whenever he puts his imagination, it's incredible. So the beginnings of their relationship is all good, and they get along really well. And Vincent is listening to everything he's saying, but little by little, tensions arise. The tensions are going to go into altercations and really disagreements and almost come to blows. And Gauguin has had it December 23rd, Christmas Eve. Gauguin announces that he's leaving. Oh my God. Vincent's dreams are coming crashing, and he is besides himself. Uh, and they had a few too many drinks, at least he did. And so he was definitely under the influence. So upstairs, somewhere in on this floor, Vincent is going to brandish a razor, what is it, like sharp razor or just straight razor, and threaten to use it against Gauguin. Of course, Gauguin is going to be like frightened and pack everything as soon as he can, and then he would leave the house and run away. It's very possible that he goes into this building, which was also an inn. But anyway, so Vincent is left all by himself right there. And as we all know, he's going to turn that weapon against himself and cut his left ear. Okay, left ear. Why is he cutting his ear? Why? Well, there is a theory out there. Let's go back to this painting. Like I mentioned, that he did go to the arenas. He did go to see what they do to bulls and how they finish them up with the matador. This bull, this kind of macho, very masculine, muscular, powerful beast animal, well, he ends up getting defeated on this arena. Well, this is what he saw. He went there and he saw it. But then one thing that happens there that I didn't mention, after the matador kills the bull, as a trophy, he gets the ear of the defeated bull that was just killed. So there are some people that come there, not the matador himself, they come on the arena and then they cut off the ear and give it to him. So he gets the ear. If his performance was outstanding, he gets both ears. If his performance was excellent, he gets one ear. So here is the matador, all proud of himself for having gotten one of the ears of this poor bull. And he doesn't stop there. He takes the ear and he throws it toward the risers to perhaps a woman that either he knows or any pretty woman that he sees. And then he just tosses the ear toward that woman. I'm not kidding. This is what they do. And this is what, here's the picture to show that. So he says basically, hey, here is this beautiful Arlesienne, take this ear. Okay, well, that's a little bit what he's going to do. He's going to take that severed ear, put it in a newspaper. He will create a little package, and then he will leave the house, just like this fellow here. With tuk, 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 tuk. He's going to go around, and there is a house there where the ladies of the night wait for you. This is a place where he went several times with Gauguin. He was annoyed that those ladies gave better favors to Gauguin than to him. He was annoyed by that, kind of jealous. So he's going to call one of those ladies. She will show up, and he will give the package to her. And I cannot only imagine her expression because, he's got bleeding side in him, must have been looked really horrifying. Anyway, she will take this thing and he's going to say, as he's tending the package to her, keep this object carefully in remembrance of me. This is what he says to her. So she takes the package and she opens the package and then she sees the severed member, bludgeoned, and of course she passes out. And Vincent, frightened, leaves that building and then rushes back, comes back to his home, goes back to his bedroom, lays down, and passes out himself. Hours later, neighbors and the police will come. They'll find him half dead for having lost a lot of blood, and they will take him to the hospital. So Vincent is going to spend a few days in the hospital, but remember what I said, that was Christmas Eve? Christmas Eve. What a time to do something like this. Of course, when Theo finds out hours later of the incident, he drops whatever he's doing, and whatever he's doing is basically getting ready for Christmas and also getting ready to get married with Joanna Bunker that I showed you earlier. So this poor guy is to drop whatever he's doing and then jump on a train and then come to Arles to see how his brother is doing. Anyway, he's finding out that he's not going to die. That's all he needed to know. And then he takes the train back to Paris after that. And guess what? Who else is on that same train? Poor Gogh. The two of them return to Paris. So Vincent is being cared by this doctor. His name is Felix Ray. And the two of them immediately will get along so nicely. And proof of that is that Vincent produces later on a beautiful portrait of his doctor. And of course, beautiful is something very relative because he doesn't really understand this portrait. He has never seen anything like this. In Arles, of course, I mean, if you had been in Paris, of course, you would have been exposed to many interesting way of representing things. But in Arles, nothing like this had been seen, so he just doesn't know what to make of it. And he says, "Why don't I give it to my mother?" Sort of keeping something that really I don't care much. Maybe my mom would like. Well, the mother takes it and doesn't care for the painting either, but she found a good use for it. The chicken coop has a hole and needs some repair. So why don't I put this is fitting perfectly? So she puts this very painting as a cover for a hole in the chicken coop. So basically the chickens got to admire probably more than humans this painting. How come this painting did not perish as a result of this mistreatment? Is because after Vincent died, a painter who was following in the footsteps of Vincent and just got to meet the doctor, and the doctor talked about this painting being at his mother, and he goes to the mother and then sees that the painting is in the chicken coop. Of course, saves the painting as a result of that. So that was very fortunate. Also notice that the left ear of Dr. Ray is unusually red, surprisingly red, and I have a feeling that he basically put a little wink wink there for us. Anyway, Vincent is going to recover very quickly, surprisingly, and as soon as he's back in his home, he will deliver this painting, a very powerful painting. If I had time, I would like to talk about this. There's lots going on here. It's very cool. But then the neighborhood is besides themselves to see this man, this wild person, absolute scandalous person, to come back to the neighborhood. They will create a petition so that he doesn't stay overnight there, but only uses the building as his studio. So he basically turns the hospital ward into his hotel, and that's where he keeps going. But Dr. Felix tells him that he cannot stay here. He has to, I cannot keep him here forever. He has to find maybe a mental hospital because in the meantime he's also having some mental attacks. So there is a hospital in Marseille. That's what he recommends. But luckily, he knows someone who recommends him to try another hospital. That's actually a private hospital. That's in Saint-Rémy de Provence, and that's the Saint Paul Asylum in Saint-Rémy de Provence, which is also a place that we're going to visit in person on our Provence tour. So he checks in. This is a personal move. He checks in to that hospital, this private hospital. This is a great picture. I don't have anything that resembles this from current times. So this picture must be, I don't know, from 1900s. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, I like seeing it because this is the men's ward that you see here. This is the woman's ward. And by the way, the hospital is still in existence today and still functioning as a hospital. It's amazing. At the time of Vincent's arrival, this was actually run by, I believe, Benedictine nuns. And there is a convent or maybe a monastery. Again, I'm not quite sure. I forgot now these details. And it's definitely medieval, dating from 12th century. I have a Romanesque church right there. So these are all available for us to visit, including the cloisters that you see right there. Vincent's room is here. Okay. And in front of his room, you've got this enclosed field, a wheat field. Now, the room that we visit when we go there, just as a museum, is actually this one, not the very room that Vincent stayed, but it has exactly the same configuration. And it just happens that in front of an enclosed field, so we really have a very good feel for how it was furnished and what the size was and how he lived in there by just visiting this room, which again we're going to do it. And I'm not 100% sure, but for sure he gets another room because it's only 50-60% full at that point. So they give him another room for him to establish his studio. So he paints both in his room and in a separate room in his studio. So, okay, so he arrives, he checks himself in, and then immediately he's going to deliver some incredible paintings. Okay, so the irises, he arrives in May 1889, just days after. He's out there in the garden of the asylum, giving us these incredible paintings. Of course, he loves irises because the Japanese have painted so many of those in their ukiyo-e, in their prints. He's very familiar with that subject. And then this is also a fantastic one of my favorite paintings by Vincent, because I love the fact that there is one really just pure white, beautiful iris here, almost facing all of these other ones, almost like his subject. This one has this regal, like a king-like, master-like, lord-like presence. And these are all his subjects ready to just listen to anything he says and follow him wherever he goes. And just that kind of dynamics he has created here. And again, look at the perspective that he gives us there. Yeah, so all of those guys are just turned toward him and just giving him all the respect he deserves. The other thing that's happening in Saint-Rémy de Provence is that now he's experiencing the presence of this wind called the Mistral. It's a very, very incessant wind that's very common there, and picks. And then the other thing that he's introduced to are the cypress trees that the farmers have just laid out to delineate their fields and also use them to mm, prevent the wind to just come too much into the fields. So almost like a barrier. So he's in the presence of these two kind of new elements, and he's going to incorporate that. And I think those elements are going to also bring in new vocabulary to that voice that I mentioned earlier. And those swirling movements, these undulating movements that we're going to see that the wind creates on the cypresses are now also found elsewhere. This is a new vocabulary that happens in Saint-Rémy de Provence. So the Saint-Rémy period is recognizable because you have a lot of swirling, undulating movements going on. So this is something that you should make mental note to later recognize and identify this particular period. So while he's painting this in July 1889, he has his first mental breakdown, which he calls an attack. This attack is basically going to paralyze him practically for 7 weeks. He's not going to be able to paint. So if you thought that Vincent is such a genius because he's got mental health problems, I have to tell you that that's not why. This his talent is not born from his illness. In fact, whenever he's afflicted by the effects of his illness, he stops painting. And when he's perfectly, has clarity, he's going to be describing his paintings in letters, and his objectivity, his capacity to write is so impressive. He's an amazing, amazing literary person as well. So he's going to stop painting, and practically every time he goes through these episodes, he stops painting. But as soon as he comes back, he just shows himself as a painter again, as if it was kind of a return to sanity and return to art. He asserts himself like that. And then you can see here again all of this swirling movement that's going on in the background. So, I mean, it's not always the case, so we may not have those things here, but there was one instance where he's going to completely shave his beard. Somehow he's going to like that, and this particular painting, he will choose to send it to his mom. Like, hey, mom, look, I'm clean shaven. But he's going to start getting bored, of course, in his cell and among all of these mental patients. Sometimes it can be very difficult to be among them. In fact, he feels himself in so much better shape than everybody else who are moaning and screaming. So he's hearing all of this and behaving in odd ways. So he feels that he's not one of them only when he is under the attack of those mental episodes. So he's bored. So he's going to do something really interesting. He has a collection of, it's not like postcards, but little prints of prints of his favorite paintings by his favorite artist. And of course, Jean-François Millet is among them. So he's going to look at those black and white lithographs, prints, and then he's going to do paintings inspired by them. He will call them translations instead of calling colorizing. It's not that, obviously. So a lot of paintings that actually I knew of Vincent's, later on I found out that they had been, inspired by compositions by Millet and other great painters. So here is another one by Jean-François Millet that he owned, a lithograph, and then he's going to create this piece. So, he cannot go to museums, he cannot go to galleries, and artists, they need to be stimulated by other art. Not all artists, but many of us are. So he needed that. He was terribly bored. So here is another one. and he will have another crisis almost 1 year to the day on December 24th. He'll have another attack, as he calls it, and then of course he will stop painting. That's not going to last very long. And then he will continue. Oh, he will have another one just back to back. Uh, that's a third crisis. That's also not going to last very long. And then we are back to painting based on prints of his favorite artist. And this particular one that I've always loved, turns out it was actually a Jean-François Millet composition. This one is a Gustave Doré painting. It's an interesting piece because this painting is showing prisoners who are basically doing their exercise, but what a boring exercise. They have to go turn on, run in, in the middle of a courtyard with tall walls. So he picks this particular subject. So a lot of people have debated whether he projected himself or he identified himself to these inmates in exercise. In fact, this particular character has some features that resembles a little bit Vincent's features. Anyway, the fourth crisis will happen. This is going to last 2 months. 2 months. He is completely dazed. He's going to eat some of his pains. People are going to say, oh, he's trying to commit suicide, which I don't think so. He really doesn't know what he's doing. By the way, every time he's coming out of this crisis, he doesn't even remember what he did. He's completely in a state of hallucination. However, he reaches a state during which, I mean, a state where the director of the hospital allows him to paint. So this is the only time where, under the influence of this disease, of this condition, he will paint, and he will come up with a series of paintings that are a period in themselves, and that period, one of the 6 periods, it's called Reminiscence of the North. Reminiscence of the North. That's the name of the period. We can just say Reminiscence. So this is a very, very enigmatic period of, it's really full of enigma. People have a hard time to really understand. I mean, it looks like Vincent is regressing in his skills. We are also is returning back to the subject of cottagers and peasants that were his main subjects during his early years. And they tend to be darker, they tend to be somber, they tend to have muted colors again. They have to be very sinuous, almost shaky, almost trembling, as if the hand is not able to just do anything kind of straight, no straight lines. So a certain regressions in his skills is certainly observed, and the scenes are always imaginary. He's not looking at anything. They have a kind of a strange character. So here is another one. This has, of course, more colors than others, depends on how he's feeling. But look at this one, for example, totally muted colors. So we don't know why he painted that. He doesn't really explain it explains it either. Is that an expression of kind of longing for home, for the past, for peaceful times? We don't know. Anyway, so this is going to last until April. And then as he comes out, he gives us a painting like this, which blows everyone's mind, because look at what's happening on the trunk of these trees. You basically have just a modern abstract painting. It's absolutely incredible, like a geometric abstraction going on. It's incredible. Abstract expression. I mean, how does he come up with this? It's so imaginative, so creative. So he gives us that, and then what he gives us is probably among my absolute favorite, because this is something that I absolutely love. This series of 4 still lifes that he will do, and he didn't do one single still life this whole 1 year, 12 months that he spends in Saint-Rémy. Just the last few days before he leaves in May 1890, he's going to give us 4 bouquets in vases. Either they're irises or roses. Two of them happen to be in the collection of the Met. That's incredible. Another one is at the Van Gogh Museum, the yellow one, and then all the way to the right. So three of them are actually in the United States. Just amazing. So there was a show, was it 2015, where all four had been gathered at the Metropolitan Museum. It was an amazing gathering of this amazing reunion. Anyway, so he paints us this, and what's also interesting about this painting is that the white ones that you see here, they were actually much rosier than they are because the red pigment that apparently he used was such a poor quality that it totally faded, leaving the roses as white practically. So there are some rose accents on some of them, just kind of survived, but they used to be not this white. But it doesn't matter. I mean, it doesn't matter. You take that color out, you still have something absolutely amazing. Anyway, we can kind of have a quick look at the cloister. And yeah, all those medieval cloisters are fun because those capitals are full of interesting designs. People take pictures of them. And then there is a sign that says Chambre de Van Gogh. Well, it's a little bit misleading, but okay, we'll buy that. And then we'll go up, and then that's the room. We can go inside and then kind of check things out. And then and then look through the window, and that's amazing. These iron bars. He's in a cell, practically like it's almost like jailed, obviously. And then from there you can see the enclosed field, which he saw from his actual room. But the angle is probably slightly different in this room because in the background we don't really see the chain of mountains that's called the Alpille, like the small Alp, Alpille. That's what you would see in many of his paintings. So there were many times where Vincent did not go out and painted from his window. It breaks your heart as to how many times he was basically stuck, maybe in isolation in his room because he had done something wrong or something. And all that he had left is basically same window and same subject. But under Vincent's genius, that same view at different times of the year, at different seasons, each one becomes a little masterpiece on its own. And that's where you just are blown away by this man's creativity. So of course he arrives in May, and he is so excited. This is so he barely arrives, like 1889 May, and this is his first rendition of the view, and you can see the dynamics that he puts there. This almost like vertiginous view as the whole thing is about to turn, because there is so much energy that he puts in here. I mean, this is not level. You understand this, right? This is not like this. So he gives us this energy there, and then all this shadow of this wall, because it's an enclosed field, right? All this shadow is nice and stark and bolded right there. Lots going on here, and it's May, so there's new growth going on. It's like lush and green, and some of the poppies or maybe other flowers have just come out, so he gives us those accents there. And then he will continue with that energy, but then all of a sudden now we also have the introduction of the sky and of these clouds, and this new language is coming with all these curved dashes. That's all over, and we still have this diagonal created here. It's not level. Everything that has a certain angle like this diagonal suggests motion, suggests dynamics. So that's what he wants to do. And the wind, I mean, it's almost palpable. I don't know if you feel it, but this is a very windy landscape. Anyway, so he gives us that. And then when things calm down, perhaps in the evening, sunset or sunrise, I'm not quite sure actually. I should probably know this, whether the sun is rising here or setting here. But in any case, so we have it right there. It's much calmer, and the wind probably has kind of slowed down. We don't have those crazy swirling movements there. And then you also have far more nocturnal scenes just like this. This is probably the moon, so that may have been maybe a sunset over there. I'll have to figure that out. So look at this, how creative it is, how beautiful the green he gives us for the sky. That's not blue, so it's very Fauvist in that sense. And the seasons are passing, and now you have this fellow who's just cutting all the hay. Is that how you call this? Uh, so so yeah. So he's like making a little package right there. I know that they have technical words to to describe these things, but this is what you're seeing, and it's very hot. You can feel the heat of the late summer or just the beginning of the autumn. There was one painting that's very different from everything else. Is he must have, noticed this storm and the rain falling, and he gives us this painting, which is at the Philadelphia Museum of Art. I love this painting, and it's there. It's a large, big piece, and you can see also how the Japanese artist treated the same climatic condition here. You've got the feeling of rain, and look at again so much dynamics going on. It feels like you're in a race car and or you're on an airplane about to land here. I don't know if you do you feel that? It's just so powerful. It's in November, December. So this poor guy, he just kept painting this because he couldn't go out or he just didn't have anything else. And things starts to kind of slow down. So look at this May 1890. This is a year later. So now it's much more level. We and this is how he had painted it when he had moved. And you see how excited and energized he is here. And this is now slowing down. It's kind of almost like we are getting really bored. It's time to get out of here. And that's also the period when he's going to give us this extremely famous painting, maybe his most beloved painting, to be probably put alongside the sunflowers, and you have to give tribute. You have to thank Gauguin for this painting because this is not something that you can ever see. The cypress tree with the staple of steeple. I forgot how you say yeah the so of the church of Saint-Rémy there is this village, and then the Alpi here. This whole thing is completely put together. So he creates this landscape out of his imagination, and this cypress tree, it looks almost like a black flame, is just rising up there, and this incredibly turbulent sky happening in the background that made so many people talk about this, and all of the stars, people who are in astronomy have studied this and say, oh, this is actually exactly how it is, and all these stars do exist, blah blah blah. Nobody went to. I kind of saw tumbleweed here, and I'm basically seeing again the effect of the wind. But people don't find that sexy enough to talk about winds, and so they go through other explanations about maybe what's going on, and maybe seeing a representation of what Vincent is feeling in his head. Okay, so Vincent is has had it with the hospital. He's not going to get any better, any worse, and the director allows him to leave, saying basically that this is the best he can do for him. So Vincent leaves the hospital and is going to go to Auvers-sur-Oise. However, on the way to Auvers-sur-Oise, which is in the some extended suburbs of Paris, western Paris, um, he's going to stop in Paris and he's going to see his brother and stay there at least a couple of days and also meet his nephew who was recently born and who was named after Vincent. Theo's son is named Vincent, and he was just born, and Vincent is bringing a painting for him, a painting that he's going to give his nephew Vincent, and here is the painting. Oh, I'm sure that you've seen this before. If you haven't seen it as a painting, you saw it probably as a scarf or as some maybe you know, design on some socks or something, or some tote bag. Anyway, so this is such a famous painting. Of course, people wonder, oh, is that possible for a tree to grow limbs like this? They seem to be belonging to two different trees. Anyway, lots of debate about that. I just think that it basically maybe took some limbs out of an almond tree that was blossoming. That's the first thing that kind of blossoms over there in Provence. This is February 1890. He brought it to his studio and then created this composition and gave us this beautiful blue sky background. Well, here is Vincent Willem van Gogh. This is Theo's son, Theo, and uh, Joanna Bunker. And Joanna, after he will manage to give or sell the paintings that he had, maybe out of 800 she had left, there was maybe 300 of them left with her when she died, and passed it to his son, to her son. So Vincent inherits something like 300. I mean, I don't, let's say 300, 400, doesn't matter, but just hundreds of leftover paintings. We shouldn't call leftovers. Some of these paintings, like this one, Joanna did not part with because they had some emotional value. So he, in turns, he just approaches the state of the Netherlands and then cuts a deal with them that they will actually create a foundation for his uncle, and the foundation will preserve the paintings and will exhibit the paintings, and he will sit on the board. So the state accepted, and that's how today we have the Vincent van Gogh Foundation and Museum in Amsterdam. And when you visit, you can see this painting there. Is that a great deal? So our little Vincent has gone to Auvers-sur-Oise, not too far from Paris, and things are looking up and up. There are some exhibits that he's being invited to participate as group exhibit, nothing solo. So things are good. And then he's not too far from his brother. Anyway, so he rents this room all the way in another inn. There's a restaurant there, so there may be two or three little rooms like this on the very top in the attic. So he rents that, and that's the room that still exists today, which you can visit. When we did our tour in Paris, Shada was my co-host. We did visit this room, so we were right there. We were just standing right there. So there was a bed here, and that was Vincent's bed. So why Auvers-sur-Oise? Well, there is a doctor there, Dr. Paul Gachet. He is a friend of artist. Pizarro was a friend of his, and Pizarro actually recommended Auvers-sur-Oise, and he said, hey, if you have any problems health-wise, you have a doctor who's friends of artists. He himself is an artist, so he will help you. So that's how they chose Auvers-sur-Oise. So Dr. Gachet becomes okay, very good friend actually with Vincent. They get along really well, and Vincent will produce at least one portrait, perhaps two. The second one is controversial, but this one is definitely known to be Vincent's hands. And here is a portrait of Dr. Gachet. One of my favorite paintings that came from this period is this one, the church in Auvers-sur-Oise. And then the church still stands today. And this is how you see it with the camera, let's say. And this is how Vincent sees it and represents it. Okay, so no comment. You can see it's genius again at work. And I can transform something, it's the best I can do, to something really outstanding and so much fun to see. Um, Something else starts to emerge in his vocabulary is a new format. It's much more panoramic, kind of very horizontal, extended horizontal format. Somehow he had gotten some loose canvases, then he cut it in such a way that he had this kind of very wide format for his painting. So of course he's going to use that to create landscapes of sorts, and this particular painting is often cited as his last painting ever, which is not the case, but it's quite fitting to think that it is his last painting. Why? Because there are many wheat fields in Auvers-sur-Oise, and he goes there very often to paint. And coming back from one of these wheat fields where he had gone with all of his apparel and all of his tools and his easels and canvas, and then he returns without any of them back to the Auberge Ravoux to go back to his room. And as he's crossing the restaurants to take the stairs, people hear him kind of moan. Um, and he goes to his room and then close the door, and then there is another tenant on that floor, another guest, who's bothered by all the moaning going on in Vincent's room, and he goes and checks on him and then sees that actually he's wounded. He's holding his stomach area and he's moaning from pain. And of course, he calls, they call the doctor, Dr. Gachet. And Dr. Gachet comes and sees that actually the wound in question is a gunshot wound. Nobody understands what's going on. They call, of course, for Theo to come, and Theo just drops everything again, and then comes and sees his brother. So here in that small room upstairs, all of these people, the doctor and maybe perhaps some neighbors and the other guests, and then Theo are just around him. And then Vincent keeps saying that this is something that he inflicted on himself and nobody needs to be blamed. In fact, he volunteers to say that nobody should be held responsible for this wound but him. Nobody asked him that either. He just off the bat just said that. So anyway, he also refuses to get any treatment. So of course, immediately people think that he committed suicide, but somehow it didn't go well. And he didn't manage to kill himself, and somehow he made it to his room, and he was basically waiting to die there. Anyway, the whole thing doesn't make any sense, but that's what they believe. And there isn't a serious attempt really to save him. Uh, they aren't able to get the bullet. There's not even an attempt to get the bullet. I don't get it, and they don't take him to the hospital basically for almost 2 days. Vincent is in this state and finally dies. So, in the 1960s, on one of those wheat fields, a weapon like this is recovered. Somehow comes to the surface. And of course, what are the odds to find a weapon like this in a wheat field? And they all put the two and two together and they said, oh, this is the weapon that wounded mortally Vincent. In fact, it was in private hands and it was put in auction and it sold for $180,000 at auction in 2019. Probably the most expensive used non-working rotten weapon ever sold. Okay, so what happened? I don't know. You go there in this room, and when you visit, you will have a docent, someone who will tell you the story. And then if you ever had the bad idea of asking, but this makes no sense. I mean, if Vincent wanted to kill himself, why would he just aim the weapon toward his abdomen? Why not just shoot himself in the head and then be done with it? That just makes no sense. Well, they don't want to hear about that. And then they don't want to certainly talk about the fact that, on his deathbed, some fellow just confessed that he was responsible for what happened to Vincent. And then how is that? So again, on his deathbed, he tells the story that when he was a teenager, he and a few of his friends just harassed and bothered this painter, and somehow a weapon was produced, and then in the melee, it fired and then hit Vincent in the stomach area, and it was an accident. So everybody kind of ran away, and the kid just threw the weapon in the field, or maybe buried it, and that was the end of it. And Vincent left all of his belongings in the field and then returned back to his home, and those belongings were never recovered. So maybe the kids, just to maybe hide evidence or anything like this, also took all that and then disposed of them in a secret place that was never found. Well, that story will never going to be an official story. The foundation does not accept that as the official line. So Vincent basically committed suicide, and that's how we have to end this lecture. He is buried next to his brother, who passed away 6 months after Vincent out of complications due to the syphilis disease. It must have been a horrific death. That disease really is a terrible, terrible way to die. So Vincent is here, Theo is here, and then you have a wall. This is the Auvers cemetery, and it just happens that behind this wall you have a field. Well, thank you for your attention. Now we're going to do something fun, and we're going to play the guess the period play game. So there are 6 periods that I can kind of distinguish. The early period, so dark earth tones, the Paris period, this pivotal time where you have brighter, lighter, but impressionistic, pointillistic, kind of experimental with colors. All right, then you have Arles. This is when the mature style, his voice is established, and now you can say, oh yes, this is a Van Gogh. Then the Saint-Rémy, it's a lot of the Arles plus some undulating streams and dashes and the Alpi, and then the old masters. You remember how he's translating those lithographs? Okay, remember that? That's from the Saint-Rémy period. And then the reminiscence of the North, that during his 2-month-long illness, those cottages, those trembling lines, kind of mysterious, bizarre, strange. And then the final period, Auvers-sur-Oise. So that's definitely post-reminiscence, but there are some elements of it, those little curls, the curved dashes, townscapes. Yeah, you are in the suburbs, so that's also a giveaway. And then that wide format that I mentioned earlier. Okay, so make sure that you unmute yourself, and we're going to start with this one, and then you're just going to shout whether it's an early, whether it's Paris, whether it's Arles, Saint-Rémy, Reminiscence, or Auvers-sur-Oise.
Paris.
Paris.
Paris. Oh, bravo, bravo. But I have a wonderful crowd here. Woo! Well, it's kind of interesting to start with this absent, which is of course possibly what complicated the condition of Vincent. But he was diagnosed officially as an epilepsy, But then, some people solve with bipolar disorder, personality disorder, manic depression, schizophrenia. I mean, they laid it out on him, all kinds of things. Okay.
Arles.
Arles, yeah.
What did I hear there? Say that again.
Arles.
Arles.
Arles. Okay. Well, it's actually almost Arles. This building is actually the hospital building. So it's actually Saint-Rémy. But you weren't too far. Those little short dashes and the presence of these undulations, all these winds presence is usually Saint-Rémy. Alors, what's next? Well, I didn't tell you the story that he went to Sainte-Marie de la Mer. I didn't have time for that, but that's from that period. So, what's the period?
Don't look like anything.
Paris.
Arles,
Arles.
he goes, yeah, it's Arles. From Arles, he goes to Sainte-Marie-de-la-Mer. It's very interesting. Maybe when we are there in Arles, I'll tell the little story as to perhaps why he chose to go there. Okay, so that is pretty easy.
Arles.
So let's see. He looks very urban.
Yeah, maybe Paris.
Paris.
Paris, yes.
Paris.
Okay.
Okay.
Holland.
Early.
Early, very good. Early.
Cabbage, potatoes.
This is such a beautiful piece.
Saint-Rémy.
Well,
Arles.
we don't, it's Arles, yeah, we don't have the cypress trees. We don't have those dashes that are kind of very curly and those sinuous lines. Okay, okay, now we go. Well, we know what this is.
Yeah.
Saint-Rémy.
Saint-Rémy, very good. Yeah, so he says, cypresses occupy me. I like to do something with them like the canvas of the sunflowers because it astonishes me. No one has yet done them as I see them. It's beautiful with regard to lines and proportions like an Egyptian obelisk. And the green has such distinguished quality.
Early.
Holland.
Paris, yeah.
Oh, that's Paris? Oh,
Well, it's very
Beautiful.
early on.
very early.
So he
Beautiful.
just comes, so yeah, so these are totally kind of a
Beautiful.
transition from the early to Paris.
Oh.
You remember this
Wow.
Oh, right. Saint-Rémy.
Saint-Rémy.
Saint-Rémy? This is what he's painting from his room.
Right.
That's where the
This
room.
is the enclosed field. This is very easy.
Early.
Exactly, early.
Oh.
It's going to last 5 years. 1885, it's about when that early period ends. Okay, you remember this building? We saw it earlier, and all of this wind and sinuous stuff going on.
Saint-Rémy.
Saint-Rémy.
Saint-Rémy, exactly. That's the hospital building. Aha. Okay.
Oh.
Reminiscence.
Reminiscence. Bravo.
Reminiscence.
Bravo. Bravo.
What was it? Saint-Rémy.
Reminiscence. This was
Oh,
Reminiscence.
Reminiscence. Okay.
This is Reminiscence too, I think.
Oui.
Okay. Let's see. So this
Oh,
one,
okay.
I mean, I
Oh,
totally
so,
agree that it could have been a
so-
reminiscence. You have something that looks like cottages, but it's a little bit too urban to be cottages. I mean, just as a subject. And there's just too much color here for it to be reminiscence.
Oh.
And this is very interesting. So it's so different from anything else you've seen so far. So what is he doing here? This looks like Christ, right?
Mhm.
It's a
Looks
Piet.
like the Virgin Mary. Exactly, it's a Pietà. So he's basically copying. So when did he do those copying of old masters?
Was doing it with the Gauguin told him to imagine.
When he was in
Reminiscences.
Saint-Rémy. So it was exactly when he was in Saint-Rémy that he did all that. So, and this Pietà is after Delacroix, and what's very interesting is that he put his features on Christ's head, just as if he was identifying himself as the sacrificed Christ. Okay, so let's see.
It looks pointillous, so
So he's
Plus
experimenting.
Turmoil.
When did he do
His
a lot of
last period.
experimentation?
Arles.
the second
Auvers.
period.
That's the
Auvers.
Paris period, exactly.
Okay.
So that's when he was experimenting and kind of getting inspired by other post-impressionist artists. Okay, this isn't too difficult.
Oh, early.
Early, exactly. This is again his realist period, just putting his attention on subjects that usually aren't covered. Okay, that's good.
Reminiscence.
Saint-Rémy.
Reminiscence, exactly. You've got
Reminiscence.
cottages. Yep. You've got cottages, you've got peasants. So that's going to be your reminiscence, and really bizarre colors. Again, look at that, how odd this turquoise
You
is
know, see
going.
how his hand is shaking. Oh.
So this one,
Auvers.
okay, Saint-Rémy,
Auvers.
correct. Lots of wind here going on. Look at all those olive trees being swept by the wind. And when we are there, we will be this rock formation, this craggy rock formation with these two naturally formed windows in the distance.
Fuzzy.
Arles.
Exactly.
Ow.
Joseph
Suppose so.
Roulin. Okay, be careful. Next one.
Oh, this dashes. Paris.
Paris. Yes, he's experimenting.
Mm.
Look at that. Exactly.
Oh, it's the last Auvers.
Auvers. Oh, Arles.
So you remember the
Yeah.
Almond blossom.
almond branch? Yeah. So it's basically kind of related to that, even though it paints it really a bit after. Okay, this is easy.
Early.
Early, exactly. Easy.
Saint-Rémy.
Saint-Rémy.
Look at
Cypress.
all this
Cypress.
going on. Look at the cypress trees. When did he see all these cypress trees? When he was in
Saint-Rémy.
Saint-Rémy, exactly. Okay.
So
Paris.
Paris, yeah. That's Montmartre.
Wait, no.
Arles.
Exactly, Arles.
To be
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's
early with the
tulips.
tulips, right?
Beautiful.
Mhm.
That's a lot more color than he usually had, yes?
That's right. That's right. That's more color than we usually. But the cottages, and that's kind of a quiet landscape. Yeah. But you
Beautiful.
still have all this, perspective going toward the vanishing point. That composition still stays. He did a lot of still
Right.
lifes in this period because it was a good way to experiment on colors.
Paris.
Paris.
Mm.
Hmm.
Paris, maybe, because it's
Or
kind
Yeah,
of
Paris,
yeah.
because it's such an industrial environment here, and he has all these long dashes that he's experimenting with, certainly. Okay,
Paris.
Paris,
Paris.
very good. All right, so let's be careful on this one. Look at these houses. It's not exactly cottages, but it is.
Saint-Rémy.
Could it be
Or
reminiscent?
Reminiscence.
It's past Reminiscence. It's actually Auvers-sur-Oise.
Oh.
Oh.
Yeah, so you have to, this is more like the suburbs of Paris when you see these buildings. But it does pick up a lot of the Reminiscence vocabulary. Look at those little curved dashes, very much so. Easy.
Arles.
Arles.
Arles, exactly. He's doing all this for.
So all the sunflowers are in Arles. I
yes,
missed
all the
I missed a
sunflowers
little.
are Arles.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Okay.
Beautiful.
What is this technique?
Pointillism.
Pointillism. Where did he see pointillism?
Paris.
In Paris, exactly.
Beautiful.
Okay, look at the
wide
format here.
That's Auvers-sur-Oise.
Oh, there.
Big.
Of
This
Auvers,
last
exactly.
period,
The format is a
Auvers.
big giveaway, and also again those houses. They look like cottages, but it looks like a banlieue,
thatched
like a
roofs,
suburbs
yeah.
place.
Beautiful.
Okay, this is so uncharacteristic. So what is he doing? He's copying something.
Oh,
Reminiscence.
No, Reminiscence.
Saint-Rémy.
Saint-Rémy.
Saint-Rémy, exactly. He's now
Wow.
copying Rembrandt. He's doing his take on a Rembrandt piece.
Stefan, can you comment on why so many of the Reminiscence paintings or Saint-Rémy paintings are in private collections?
Oh, do I know how many of them are in
No,
private
not how
collections?
many, but can you comment on why? Because why there are so many of them in private collections from that period?
Well, I think that because they were released to be sold more easily than others that were held by museums. So I think the period of Reminiscence is a lesser precious period and maybe less sought after period. So those are going to probably stay in private hands. Of course, if they are put out, they will be sold, but they may be bought by private individuals rather than museums.
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting your.
No, that's fine. So this looks very impressionistic, isn't it?
Mhm. Renoir.
Paris.
Yeah.
Paris.
Exactly. Renoir, very good. He must have been looking at Renoir.
So,
Paris, exactly. This is a tough one.
Reminiscence.
This is really a tough one.
I'm guessing Reminiscence.
No.
I'm seeing
yeah, I
Arles.
mean, I would have
Oh.
thought it was Reminiscence, but it was actually Auvers. So that's kind of a tough one, this one. I mean, it's definitely picks up the Reminiscence vocabulary here.
This looks very
But,
shaky.
yeah, this is a tough one. I love this painting.
Paris.
Almost. I mean, you're right to think it's Paris because this is one of the first one he does when he comes to Arles. Look at that. He arrives in February. This is March. So just 1 month after. And this one is at the Kroller-Müller Museum. Oh my God, what a museum, what collection. Kroller-Müller, they tried to buy so many of Vincent's works and Joanna just would not let them buy them. She was just anyway. There's a whole funny story about that. Okay, so what do you think this is?
Sunflowers, I'd say.
I think it's Arles.
Okay, so you're saying it's all because you're seeing a sunflower, but these are dead sunflowers, and he wouldn't have painted dead sunflowers for Gauguin. So it's not Arles.
Saint-Rémy.
So Saint-Rémy, we don't have that technique of Saint-Rémy of those little curls and the ondulation. It's not going to be Saint-Rémy. It's going to be Paris. Very oddly. Yeah, it's not easy.
Wow.
This one, I would have never found this one. So I'm telling you, this one is a tough one to me.
This is Saint-Rémy.
Arles.
It's past Arles, actually. It's Saint-Rémy.
Saint-Rémy, because of the different, the
This
different
painting, when the Met did retrospectives of Van Gogh, this particular painting was in that exhibit.
There you go.
Yeah, okay.
This is a tough one too. I mean, look at how
Paris.
Paris.
much. Paris, he wouldn't have exaggerated the shapes to
Okay.
this extent. This is
Maybe
he's
early.
really taking tremendous liberties here. This is going to be an Auvers-sur-Oise, but it's a tough one.
That's pretty.
Early.
Paris.
Paris.
Paris, exactly. Okay, last one.
Arles.
Where did he cut his ear?
Arles.
Arles.
Oh, there you go. All right, well, you guys did great as always. What a great crowd I have. Thank you so
Bon
much.
voyage. Bon
Thank you so
voyage.
much. Thank you so much.
Merci
All
mille
right.
fois.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Merci.
Wonderful series.
Bye, everybody.
the
Bon
next-
voyage to those who are going,
Yeah.
and
Merci.
hopefully
Yeah.
others will go
Bye,
next year.
Shada. Bye, Shada.
Bye,
Salut
Mark.
Marc.
Bye,
Hello,
Bye,
Marc.
everyone. Thank you. Thank
You
you.
make me
Great,
laugh
great
a lot.
lecture, Savan. Thank you.
Au revoir.
You really bring joy to the whole series and make me laugh a lot at some of the ironies that you create. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Harriet.
Okay.
Bye,
See you
everybody.
also.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.